to even bring in, you see how I have some torn sections here? And it's definitely pretty delicate, but I'm going to go ahead and staple these. Oh, there's another one on this side too. I think they'll just add the interest. And then there's one over here. And I'm going to show you this one too. I did this after we created the stencils together, but I wanted to just keep the line going. So I just added some staples here and here, and I like that little extra element of the mark making. So I have my brush and I have some India ink. And I'm just going to start at the bottom. I'm just making, yeah. And then we're going to put this one aside to dry too. For the last two that have the paint on them, I'm just going to come in here with a soft pastel, and I'm just going to create an intentional mark here. I'm going to put that aside. And now we have just the vellum with the grayish paint on it. And I just have some white gesso here. And I thought it'd be fun, let's just do the marks that were in our concrete mold that we have in the house. I'm really excited to see the marks that you collect and that you end up using in this section. This is really the only part of this online class where we're kind of doing some art in this way, and getting our hands dirty and getting out some supplies. The rest will be how we lay out and our gathering and everything. But I couldn't have a class with you guys and not make in this way too. Okay, last row. And it had the 4 across the top, and then it would have had it along the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and do that too. Okay. I don't like hearts and things like that, so I was feeling like it was looking too hearty. So I just came in with a just a wet wipe, and I'm just kind of sporadically softening them and even taking some of them out. And I'm liking how that is better. So in the beginning, I told you that I had gotten this powder from Marrakesh when we were in Africa last year, and I'm losing track of time. And so I'm just put some here. It's very fine. I would really say it's very similar, almost to like a ground graphite or a loose charcoal, and but not as, it's definitely heavier than a ground charcoal. So I'm going to just put a little bit of linseed. So even though when I bought it, what they were selling it for is for eyeliner. And at the time, I bought it hoping to somehow use it in art. So I'm going to add a little bit of linseed oil. Let me mix it for you so you can kind of... It's a beautiful black that has like, but it's soft. It's not, you know, if you look at it compared to the India ink, it's just a much softer black. And also want to make sure I have enough here to do this. We're not going to need too much, but... And the mark making I'm going to do right here, you guys can just use India ink, obviously. Or if you have vine charcoal, or... It's just hopefully not to make you feel like you need what I have or what I'm using, because I doubt you're going to go to Africa to go pick this up, is that I just want to encourage you to play and to make up your own things and just have fun experimenting. So I'm just going to start here with outlining the area that I'm interested in. Now, because I've added oil, keep in mind, it'll take longer to dry, but I'm going to show you a little thing we're going to do to absorb some of the oil too. Now all I'm going to do is come back in, and I'm just going to start making shapes within the outline. And one thing will lead you to your next mark. With the excess oil, I'm going to see how a little bit of tissue paper would absorb it without messing it up too much. Sometimes you can get some really cool marks over here. I can even kind of pat down my wet wipe. So you can mix lots of dry pigments with linseed or walnut oil and use it as a painting medium. So you can crush down your pastels. You can grind, you know, rocks and pigments on your own property or found pigments. And so it's a great way to use some of your dry medium in a wet form too. So I'm going to put this one aside, and we're just going to do one more small one. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to outline the area. And if you like vellum and you like the transparency, then I mean, I even like to print things out on vellum, some of my own work. It just brings another fun aspect to of your layering, and especially if you do collage work. I added way too much oil, but we're just going to go with it. I'm not going to do too many. I just wanted to make some shapes. I'm going to set this one aside because it is going to take some drying time. So maybe you're wanting your marks to not be so abstract, and maybe you want to represent some other things like that you are finding that are beautiful and that are actually more realistic. And so here's an image that I found from one of my plant books, and it's this beautiful magnolia branch with magnolia flowers. And so I use this as a reference. So you can use your own photos, you can use like magazine images, you can also use images off of sites like the Graphics Fairy that are copyright free. But I'm just sketching, so you don't have to worry about that when you're just using something as a reference photo that's loosely based on it. And so what I did here is I have a piece of my vintage paper, and it's been clear gessoed, and I have a charcoal pencil. I have a little bit of white gesso, and then I'm going to need to have a little bit of water. And I just have a brush this is a 4 round. And so I'm just going to use my image again to kind of guide me. And sometimes I find that I add things like that I think will, maybe I add little buds where there aren't any, but it's just nice to have an image to kind of go off of. I'm just trying to do it very loose, almost like wispy. And you can see here in the actual image that it comes down here and kind of stops at the bud, and then it comes up. But you don't really see these magnolia flowers very much. So I just included this one, and I just put it up here. So I'm going to also be continuing. Maybe I'll show you guys this too. I'll just swap these out so you can kind of see better. You can even see that I'm holding my charcoal pencil back. I just want it to be very loose. I'm going to be coming in here with some water and some white gesso anyways, so. Okay, and this is where I'm like going to now incorporate this flower instead. So definitely going to have the darker center. And if you hate drawing or you think you're not very good at it because maybe you just haven't practiced enough, but I can promise you, you practice and you're going to get better. I would really even suggest one of the really great warm-up ways is to do contour sketches, which means you sketch, but you never lift your pencil, your marker, whatever you're sketching with. So if you were sketching this and the whole time you're just kind of looking at it and not lifting your pencil, it kind of takes the pressure off of it being perfect because you can't. And that it really makes the sketching and practicing a lot more fun. So I have my charcoal sketch. I have my original image just to use so I can see just values and shadowing. As a quick reference, we're going to only spend a few minutes on this. I have my brush, I have a cloth. If I need to kind of wipe off my brush a little, I have water and my white gesso. So I like to start by just coming in and moving that charcoal around a little. Sometimes I don't even think it makes sense how I'm wetting it or drying it. It's just a habit. So you're probably like, did she just dry that and then go wet it again? Yes, yes I did. What I'm going to do while the charcoal is wet, I'm going to come in here and just add a little bit of that white gesso. That's bringing in some white values, but it's also lightening the value of the black. So and because it's gesso, it's now making this movable, water-soluble medium like charcoal. It's now going to make, once it dries, that it's set. I think the best thing about art is that you can make it with very, very simple tools and you don't need a lot of things. I wish more people would realize if you just had a little journal with you and a pencil, just how much your life could really change in practicing and even joy. Just of engaging, being present, creating. What a gift it is to yourself. And I remember the first time that I went into like a Dick Blick and I didn't know, gosh, like almost what any of it was, you know, and it can be so overwhelming and it's hard to ask questions, at least it was for me, and maybe you won't feel that way, but the more that you practice and the more that you just have fun with art, I think you realize that you don't need everything that everyone's selling. And I'm always kind of pulling the charcoal in because I want to keep those nice lines. And this, once it's mixed with water, really kind of pools and dries beautifully like watercolor. I think that's one of the things I really love about using a Stabilo or charcoal in my sketching and kind of painting with them. And I'm even leaving some areas like dry. Some areas I'm not even adding any of the white gesso. All right, I'm just going to continue doing the same thing for the rest of it, and I'll speed it up. And so I just really encourage you, and you could take as long as you want. We're not going to take very long here, but you could, and for your inspiration boards. And one of the things I hope you really take away from everything that we're going to do is that it's kind of this this thing that you're going to be creating that's it's not done when you create it the first time. That it's something that you get to keep on coming in and taking things away, adding something beautiful you find, that it gets to be a continuation of what's encouraging you, what's inspiring you, what's catching your eye, and that you don't let it just be this thing that almost becomes stagnant, and then maybe you don't see it. Do you know how when you're around your home, or you know, that you'll have something hanging, and at first when you first put it up, your eye was constantly drawn to it, and you were so in love with it, and you were so glad you bought it, and then after a while we become numb to it, right? We become blind to it. And so that's why it's going to be so good for you to keep on making changes, so that the inspiration boards really serve its purpose of inspiring you, and it keeps changing as you're changing, and that you're not afraid to change its look and its purpose. I'm just going to come in with a graphite, and really, guys, this is just to be another layer in all the work that we're going to be putting all the different pieces. But if you wanted it to be perfect, and if you wanted to spend a lot of time, you can, and I know it's going to be awesome. So just so you can even see the difference, this is done on something with a darker patina. This is a little lighter. This has more white space. This was really filled in. And so it makes such a difference. Like, imagine if we would have done it on this card. I mean, every substrate you use, it's going to bring a different result. Sometimes maybe the marks that you're going to gather and that you're going to want to put up on your board are going to be for very specific reasons, like for me, I want to use some oil paints that have been thinned down with some mineral spirits and poured over this raw canvas as a reminder to be an experimenter. I love the work of Helen Frankenthaler, and some of what she did was so much of just experimenting and using mediums in a different way, non-traditional ways, and doing a lot on raw canvas with really thinned down oils and looking at the effects of that. So she was able to almost have watercolor effects using oils on really large canvases. And so for me, I want to have a reminder up on one of my boards to be an experimenter and to really try new things, but then to also remind myself, hey, I want to try this technique in some of my new work coming up. So I have mineral spirits. Right now I'm just trying to, I'm just going to even put this right in here. And I can save this also for later and use it. I have some more here, so I can even do a couple pieces. But she would even pour it. I'm not going to be pouring it because I'm on my desk, but look at like this really thinned out. Okay, that just looks like some prehistoric animal right now. Let's try to change that. I'm going to do the same thing over here. First of all, I love the color, and in fact, the Jeanne paints, it's called ombre blue, and I can't find it anywhere, and it's the most incredible color. You know what I'm going to do too? Like, let's get a bigger brush so I can kind of mop up that a little more. And okay, well, how about we add some more pigment in here, and let's add on to what we've already started, just in a few different places. I'm going to even go intentionally really much darker, just so we can really see it, and because we won't have the time together to keep playing with it. But don't worry, we'll be doing more of this in some other classes this year on bigger canvases. I'm just gonna put a little bit over here. All right, let's put this aside. For this one, I'm using the vintage negative that I have clear gessoed, and I'm using just a number stencil. And I'm from a family of 5. I now have a family of 5. So I've always loved that number, if you're going to love a number. So I'm just going to come in here. You've already watched me be super imperfect on everything else, so. And so I'm just going to put this aside. That was very wonky over here. I'm all for imperfect, but that was a little too much of imperfection. So I'm going to clean that up a tad. Okay. So to use numbers, I love numbers. We'll talk about that in a little bit when I show you some of my bundles. But numbers and type, that really, I'm drawn to that as much as I am to color and composition and anything else. And so if you also love numbers, if you love fonts, make sure that your inspiration board shows that. So you remember this one that we just did with the pigment and the linseed oil? Well, I would really like to incorporate it somehow into what we're working on now and not have to wait for this to dry so much. That I'm going to come back in and I'm going to do it again with some India ink so it can dry immediately and we can hopefully layer it or find a place for it in one of our boards. It's kind of what I love about this mark making practice is that you kind of end up figuring out things that you really like or lines you really like or imagery. India ink is amazing. And it moves around with water beautifully if you want to and change the values. What I think is funny is that even something I made, I can't even copy it exactly. All right. That line needs to be softer. All right, so I'm going to let this dry. I just wanted to show you what I was doing if you ended up later seeing it and it didn't look as soft, and because I definitely want to have some of this, like the lines, even just the impact of the black and white spaces. I just love it. All right, I have some liquid charcoal here. Just going to add some water. And I think the main thing you can see consistently through everything is that everything kind of goes together, which means that no matter what paper I'm using, because I'm using all vintage papers with kind of natural, neutral tones, and I'm bringing in just, you know, one of the colors here. And then I changed the variety and the values a little bit. And then I brought in, gosh, I think the only other color was this yellow mustard color in the pastel. We had white, we have the black India ink, and you're seeing over we had the indigo, but everything, like when it's all laid out together, it doesn't really matter. It's all gonna really look really nice with one another. So that's just something that I would encourage you. So if you love orange, have orange. Add the raw umber to the orange. What does orange look like with a little gray in it? What does orange look like with more white? Add a little black. How can you take that and then also add some inks? How do you add charcoals? And so don't feel like if you're looking at my inspiration boards or you're looking at my color palette that I am including in this and it's not yours. The last thing I would want you to do is to make anything that doesn't feel like you. It doesn't matter. You can follow every single thing I do, and if it's not in your color palette, you're just not going to be happy with it at the end. Okay, so I want to use this to do a little spray paint in just a minute. So I'm just going to take a little bit off here. And I'm just going to do some bigger. I just want you to see what this liquid charcoal looks like. So it has kind of the softness of some of the other medium we've used compared to the India ink. Like a really soft black. I actually think it's very, very similar to what this looks like without all of the oil in it. And I really included that in this because I just wanted to have something on my inspiration board that was created from that from my trip to Africa. Another great background is some of these large vintage. This is just, it looks like it's something mechanical, and so they're not blueprints, they're like drafting sheets here. I know I'm not calling it the right thing right now. What I love about them, it's thin. It's almost like newsprint, which I love for layering, including in my art, for mark making. It includes very simple lines, which I really love. It has font, it has words, it has a type here. And then it also has like numbers up in the corners. And it has numbers here down below. You can see that. So for me, this is a really fun find. And I wanted to show you, because we've been doing so much mark making together, I didn't want to have you sit through this whole thing, but I just used the same brush. It was just one of my square brushes, and I just used indigo watercolor. So it would have just been this. And I took my brush with water, and you can see when it was fresh, loaded with pigment, and then as it gets lighter and lighter and lighter, and then I get it loaded with pigment again, and then I go the other direction and load it with pigment, and I like that variation. I think it's really interesting. Sometimes I've added white and graphite and everything in that, and let me show you kind of what that would look like. So you can tell I'm a big fan of this color palette and also this mark making. And this is from my online course underneath. It's an oil and cold wax class. But the same thing, it's just using that indigo watercolor that I love so much. And I put a little bit of white with it and some graphite in it. And I'm even gonna come down so you can really see the detail in that. So you can see that I've added tick marks, and I've kind of circled some things with a mechanical pencil. I came in with a little bit of white gesso, and so you have lots of different values of that indigo in this piece. And so I really love just these simple marks, but I think all together they can make a really big impact. So I think you should thank me for not making you watch me make this whole thing, but I think it's gorgeous. And I'm sure it'll find its way into either a new piece of work coming up, or maybe it'll find its way into one of our boards. So let's get back to this piece right here. And I wanted to show you a few ways that we can add marks to this, and then we're also going to spray paint. So you can really use anything as a stamp. Now these are old wallpaper stamps to create repetitive patterns. And this is actually a roller stamp, which is about the coolest thing I've ever seen. And this, if I ended up creating something with this, we'll do it in the other part of the studio, and we'll do it on film so you can kind of, it's just a bigger process than what I can show here. But like, what do you have that can make repetitive marks? So I thought it'd be fun for us to take the smaller one here, and I was trying to use some of my leftover paint. You can kind of see it over here. I'm gonna do it again. Now just coming in just so you can see it. Now let's do a little spray painting to kind of end and wrap up all of our mark making. Okay, I had to go out of where I was normally filming because these are bigger sheets and we're using spray paint. So the first thing I wanted to show you is that I have some numbers that I've put on some vellum. And I've taped them all down, and I just have it on top of newsprint just for the overspray. And then over here is one of my face stencils that'll be coming out, and I thought it'd be fun to do it on top of the draft paper. I'm not using a special spray paint. I was actually just using what was already here in the studio. This is just the Krylon. This is satin black. All right, this will not be the last time that you're seeing us spray paint in this class, but let's go ahead and do our numbers. Let's go ahead and do our girl. That I think I did a little too heavy because I'm trying to hold a phone, but we'll see. All right, the big reveal. Awesome. Let me take it off of the newsprint. Okay, I tore it all off, and here is it. It's on vellum, which is going to be cool if we want to layer it. Now let's go take off the portrait. All right, I was way too heavy-handed, but she still turned out pretty good. I'm going to do it one more time, though, a little farther away. All right, well, thanks for being, I hope, gracious with me with my not the most professional filming here, but let's give it another shot. Okay. Turned out cool.